Why do I kind of like you now? March Madness basketball. Don't ask me any more questions about March Madness or basketball. Him being a superhero. Okay, this is actually set in the winter time, I think. I was definitely on Wattpad. Writing and reading. Hello to all of my beautiful besties out there. So, it is 65 degrees out today. That means we're doing book recs. The spring and summer reading is about to start. Let's hop into some spring book recs. Okay, so I kind of have them separated in genre and also kind of tell you guys like why I think they're springy. First up, I feel like we have to go with the romance books because that's just more spring summer vibes, I feel. So maybe we'll start with what I've read recently. So recently I picked up Done and Dusted in my last video, actually, if you guys watched. So this is a small town cowboy romance. So our main girl, Clementine, also known as Emmy, she is this famous horse rider. Something happens and so she has to go back to her small town, and at her small town basically her and her like childhood friend, but he's like more so friends with her brother, so brother's best friend, something happens between them and then they basically just are like, wait, why do I kind of like you now? He owns the local bar and he also helps out on her family's farm, so that is kind of the lore behind them. And this book is literally just over 300 pages and I binged this in one day. The reading vlog I read it in the challenge, I had to, but this is just such a bingeable book because it is so short and so sweet and easy to read. So definitely recommend. I feel like I love small town vibe, especially in the spring and summertime. It just hits different. I'm currently reading the second one, Swift and Saddle, and this takes place in the April month, so it's actually spring. I don't remember when this one was, but if this one's in April, it kind of seems like they might be soon after each other, so definitely recommend. I literally started this today and I am so far into it already because again, the series is just so fast-paced and addicting to read. I feel like this one got super popular lately, so I thought that we would talk about it in case you want to join the hype. So the When in Rome series by Sarah Adams, this is the one that came out recently. This is the third book. Let's back up a bit. So the first book is When in Rome. This is set again in a small town, so it's about this famous pop star and she kind of gets stranded in this town when she basically is feeling overwhelmed with her career and decides to just book it out of there. So she ends up on Noah's doorstep basically, and he owns a pie shop. How cute is that? Literally, how cute is that? Like literally look at the cover. This town is just very, very close knit. This is honestly probably my favorite small town setting I've read about. The characters in this are all just so close and there's so many just iconic characters throughout the town that work at, you know, the classic places. Noah is a part of the Walker family, so it is him and his 3 or 4 sisters, I can't remember. And then going into the second one, you are following one of Noah's sisters, Annie, and just the sister dynamic in these books is really wholesome. It just shows a lot of good girl friendships and they just do such cute things together. So this is about Annie. She owns the local flower shop and basically the main girl in this, the pop star, the romance is with her bodyguard. So, you know, he's bodyguard vibes. He has tattoos. He's that type of vibe, which we love. The third one, which just came out earlier this year, which the cover just screams spring summer. So this is about the other Walker's sister, Emily. She's a teacher at the school and her nemesis since college, Jack, is also a teacher at the school and he kind of moves back into town. So they have this rivalry going on. I can't pick a favorite out of the series. I love them all for different reasons. So the series is just so cute and so perfect for spring summer. Like just look at the colors. It's so perfect. And then this one is a little more summer, but maybe if you're going on a trip, because it does take place in Florida, which is definitely a popular destination, pick up this. This is a YA book. It was originally on Wattpad and it got published, which shout out that. That's just incredible. I was definitely on Wattpad, writing and reading. It's just cool to see. So basically she goes from Alaska to Florida for the summer and she meets the boy next door and he just kind of shows her around the city and just does the Florida things. So this was a really cute, fun time. It was just a fun summer book, but definitely I feel like also if you're going on a beachy trip. Next up, one of my favorite romance books of 2024, we have The Love of My Afterlife. Again, cover screams spring summer. So this follows Delphi. She dies by choking on a microwave hamburger, of all things. And so she kind of enters this afterworld waiting room situation. So when she gets there, there's someone like working there basically, and she ends up giving Delphi a second chance at life. She gives her, I think it's 10 days to go back, find this stranger, kiss him, and then she can stay alive. So you're following her on this adventure, and it's just really high stakes because she obviously has 10 days, so she's trying to make the best out of her life and just kind of changes the way she approaches the world and life. So I really liked that. This book has a ton of character development, and it was just fun for having like a sad undertone. It was very unique, and I really enjoyed what did I enjoy? I don't know. I keep getting word text during this and I'm like, guys, you're killing So yeah, I really like the romance in this book. There is just so many great characters and it was just so fun. This was so, I don't want to say like action-packed with the romance book, but there was just so much going on throughout this story. Another pretty popular series, but I feel like I just want to talk about it. We have the Windy City series minus Mile High. I have not read that one, nor have I heard good things about it, so skipping that one. But also March Madness basketball. It's March. Don't ask me any more questions about March Madness or basketball, but this is about Ryan Shea, who he is a famous basketball player. So if you're into sports and or sports romances, maybe you want to just pick this up and live amongst the basketball hype with people. Personally, I'm not a basketball hype girly, so don't really know what I'm saying, but I can, you know, recommend. So this is about Ryan Shea, and he is a famous basketball player on like a big NBA team in Chicago. Basically, his sister's best friend has to come live with him because she doesn't have anywhere else to go. So it's kind of like a forced proximity sister's best friend trope, I guess. This is just the best series ever. I love this series so much. It is so fun, and just they each just have a lot to go through and figure out for themselves, and I love their relationship so much. The rest of the series is baseball. So this follows Kai. He's a single father, and Miller, who is a famous cook who has to come back to Chicago to kind of figure out what she's doing. This is about Isaiah and Kennedy. They get married in Vegas after a drunk night. So you're following them, and she is on the medical team for the baseball team. I don't know what season baseball is in. Summer. There you go. Another one is Unwanted by Mia Sheridan. Okay, this is actually set in the winter time, I think. This may or may not be set in the winter time, but it didn't really feel overly wintry when I read it. I mean, the cover doesn't, it kind of gives winter. Anyways, so this is about Harper, and she is a wilderness guide in this small town. And so basically there is a mystery going on. There has been 2 murders in this town where nothing like that ever really happens. So she kind of gets called in to investigate that, and the main suspect is a man who has been living alone in the woods his entire life almost. You're learning more about his story and also Harper and then their connection and also the mysteries. This book is definitely more mystery heavy, but I really enjoyed that because the mystery in this book was seriously like some of the best mystery books vibes I've ever read, because it was so twisty turny and just incredible. I think this is the last like romance book. So we have Ghosted by J.M. Darhauer. So this is, I think it's indie published, but this book was so fun. So it's about this like superhero guy in the movie. So basically think like Superman in Marvel. Then the main girl is the single mother to his child. So he is kind of trying to come back into their lives, and she is apprehensive because of the past, and just you're following them together as they kind of see each other for the first time since high school and navigating them having a child together. But obviously he doesn't know the child really because he hasn't seen them since high school really. This one was so fun. I think it's kind of set in a small town, but obviously you still get the dynamic of him being a superhero. So that was just really fun to read about, the mix of those two and just how their worlds are crashing because they both live in very different types of worlds. And then kind of for some like mystery vibes, and then we'll get into fantasy. First up, this is a cozy mystery. We have Dial A for Aunties. This is one of my favorite series ever. It is just the funnest and most fast-paced time ever. So this is about our main girl Madeline, and she accidentally kills her blind date on their date. So she calls her aunties up and is like, guys, help. So they are called in to help her, and they do help her deal with the situation. And just this family's dynamic is the funniest thing you will ever read. Like laughing beginning to end of the book. It is so hilarious and so comical, but like obviously it's a morbid situation, but they make it so funny and entertaining. This is one of those books that's just like everything that can go wrong goes wrong, because it's just how it goes. And this was so much fun. There is a subplot of romance, which is so good. The series does go on to have 2 more books after this, both of which are equally hilarious and funny, so definitely recommend. And then next with mysteries, so this series is by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, who also wrote The Inheritance Games and The Naturals. So this is kind of about the debutante world. So our main girl Sawyer, she is working as a mechanic, and her grandmother, who she doesn't really know at all, comes to their door one day and offers her 6 figures in order to participate in the debutante seasons, but she ends up doing it, so she has to go live in this world with them and do all the debutante things. There's just a bunch of mysteries going on in this book. For me, this series was a little slow slower, but I definitely think it's something you guys could really enjoy, especially with the vibes. Also figuring out more about her family since she literally doesn't know them at all, and it was interesting. Then this is the second one. This one was set, I want to say it kind of gave the vibe of like Martha's Vineyard, but I don't remember where exactly it was set. Like there's water, there's like beach houses, that vibe. So this one just continues the story, and again there is just mysteries throughout, and it's about like high society debutante people. So, and then I have 2 recommendations from Miss Diana Urban. So first up we have Under the Surface. So this is set in Paris, and it is set more specifically in the Paris catacombs underneath the city. So our main girl is on this school trip, and she is kind of a like travel YouTuber vibe. Like she just loves to do like thrilling things for YouTube. And so they decide to go to this exclusive party in the catacombs with a guy they met on their trip, which like very questionable decision. So they do that, and they get lost in the catacombs, and they are obviously trying to get their way out. And well, they are down there. There is a guy in her class. They have a little connection, which was actually really sweet. I really liked the romance in this too. So the class that is not in the catacombs was trying to find them as well. Down below, they're trying to get out, and they get very lost. This was a fun time. It was a lot darker than I thought it would be, so keep that in mind when you're reading it. But yeah, this was just a fun, fast-paced mystery book. If you're going to Paris over the spring break, which like, wow, maybe bring this, or maybe don't if you're going in the catacombs, or just read this whenever you want. And then another book by her, I think this takes place in the summer, but it's like on a cruise ship. So like if you're going, okay, do not read this if you're going on a cruise. You may get a little scared. So basically our main girl, she has been kind of dumped by her best friend and her ex at the same time, and so she goes on this trip. It's like kind of like a study abroad, but like it's like a semester at sea type vibe. So they're on this ship, and they're going through city to city, and her ex best friend and ex-boyfriend are on this boat with her, and she's like, guys, I do not want to deal with you. So you're following her as she's like making new friends on this boat, going to a school, and there is a murder mystery on the boat, and just like weird stuff keeps happening, and she's trying to figure out what's going on with it. And I really enjoyed this book. I liked the setting, how it was on the boat. It just made it a lot more creepy because obviously you're in a trapped space together and there's a murder going on. But this was seriously such a fun time, and you got to see some of the stops they made and the ports they went into and just the cities they went to. So cool. And now we are on to the fantasy books. Before I do that, I am going to go through the Kindle ones I screenshotted because I will forget otherwise. So the first one was Things You Save in a Fire by Catherine Center. I don't necessarily know if this is like spring vibes or just like any time, but to me this book was incredible. I gave it 4.5. So this follows our main girl, and she is transferring from a fire station to another fire station in a new city because she has to move in order to help take care of her mom. So she gets there, and she's the only woman. The chief is not, he's very reluctant to hire a woman, which like, we don't need to dive into that, but we could. So he hires her, and she is just kind of trying to get in with the group because obviously firefighters are usually really close together, especially this group. Like getting into them, getting them to trust her and stuff like that is hard. A lot of stuff goes down with that, and she does a really good job of handling it, and she just has to go through so much to get accepted by this team. And there is a romance. This romance was so good, and at the end of the book, once they get to that point where they're all good, it is the sweetest, most wholesome thing ever. I love just the dynamic, and I really enjoyed reading and learning more about firefighters and what it is like in the station. There is so much going on behind the scenes too because it's Catherine Center book. She always will make you cry and just make you feel the feels. She is such a good writer, and the story was incredible. There is so much that both of the two main characters have to just go through and learn about themselves. And then this is another mystery. We have the Finley Donovan is Killing It series. This is again one of my favorite series that I've read all of because it is just such a fun time. You will be laughing throughout. So it starts off, Finley is an author. She's talking in a Panera to her agent about the idea for her new book, and it's kind of about like killing someone like as a hitman. The person at the table next to them overhears them and slides Finley a note saying, hey, I'll give you X amount of money if you kill so-and-so. So they overhear and think Finley is a hit woman, which she is not, but she is really struggling for the money. So you're following her and her nanny, figure out what they're gonna do about this because it's a life-changing amount of money, but also killing someone. You follow that. It's just a really funny story, and it's a really interesting dynamic because the main characters are Finley, her nanny, her kids, her ex-husband, and then there is a romance too, so she does get a new love interest. It is just such an interesting dynamic, and the story is so fast-paced and fun. The book series does go on, and I love all of the books in the series. The 5th one just came out. I'm so excited to read it. And then a romance I just randomly picked up on Libby. It's called Partners in Crime by Alicia Ray. Our main girl's father was kind of involved involved in some criminal behavior and he is dead. And now her aunt, I think, died, so she goes to this lawyer's office to deal with all of that stuff, and at that lawyer's office she finds her ex-boyfriend. So they end up getting kidnapped together and just have to go on this very crazy mission to figure out everything that's going on because her dad was involved in a lot of crime stuff, so they're just trying to deal with it. I think they end up in Vegas too. It was just a really fun time because their mission was like really outrageous, but it was so fun to read about and entertaining. It was just cool because they used to date but now they're back together, forced into a situation, so it's kind of second chancey. And then getting into fantasy, so the Cinder series by Marissa Meyer. This is one that was popular about 10 years ago, which most of you probably have read. I read the Cinder book when it was popular maybe like 8 years ago, but I recently continued and read the whole series this year, or 2024. The first book is Cinder and it follows our main girl Cinder, who is a mechanic. She kind of gets tasked with helping the prince out with something. She does lose a foot, like the slipper, so you get that. All of the books in this series are retellings of a princess or just Disney story, so I really like that, and they're very, very loose retellings, so you can definitely see the similarities, but they're still very different. Like Cinder still has the evil stepmother and stepsisters. I loved it how you get the classic retelling, but also it's set in like a sci-fi fantasy world, so it's just really unique and fast-paced. There's a really good sense of found family at the end of the series. And then the next fantasy book is Metal Slinger by Rachel Schneider. If you want a fast-paced fantasy book to bring on like a vacation, like you could probably read this in one sitting. So it follows our main girl and they are in this kind of like boat world on the water. Why do I like not remember the premise of this book? So there's this market that happens every so often and they don't really get to go to it that often because it's like very far, and obviously they are on the water and the market's on land and the territories have beef. So they finally go to the market and a disruption happens. And then there's this guy who kind of goes after our main girl, like pins her up the wall and accuses her of stealing, which I don't remember if she did or not, honestly. In this world has so much going on behind the scenes. It's crazy. The politics were really interesting on how the territories didn't like each other, and I really can't wait for the second one. Like, this is probably my most anticipated book to come out, the second book of this. I gave this 5 stars. This is the most fast-paced book you will ever read. So good. The romance, actually incredible. The main guy, actually incredible. I have a couple more series to talk to you guys about. So this is the Majoran Chronicle series. It is about 4 books longer than this, and none of these are the first book, but so this is about our main girl Alex, and this book is set like at a magical school setting, so spring before school gets out if you want to read it. She is a human and she ends up basically at this magical school randomly, and she just has to figure out her powers, if she has any, what's going on, where she's at, what the vibe is, and there's just this evil guy after her and after this world. So that's kind of like the overarching political stuff going on. And what I really liked about this series is every book in the series you kind of unlock a different part of the world. Like, as you can tell by the covers, they're just different parts of the world, and I really liked that because each one, it made the world building easy to understand. Because the first book, it was like more simple at the school and this one part of the world. Next book unlocks another part, and same with the next and the next, and I really liked that because instead of getting that all at once, you got it spread out more, and that made it really easy to understand. This is a YA series. It can be a little slower and repetitive at some points, but the found family in this series is so good. It's top tier. These characters are incredible, and it is so fun and so easy to understand, and just once you get to the end of the series, you will have fallen so deep in love with it. Again, this is not the first book, but Heartless Hunter and the Rebel Witch duology, the Crimson Moth series, it's called something else somewhere else. I think it's just